maybe you left it in your suitcase and it is being magically whisked away to the middle of nowhere, Missouri right now, waiting for you to arrive at the campgrounds in just a few hours. We got you covered. You can either look on with a friend, but if you didn't wear deodorant or brush your teeth, then don't get that close to the person next to you instead. Check out the sky hall behind me. We're going to Matthew chapter 9, reading just the first few verses. We're actually going to read verses 1 through 8. So, man, I'm pumped to talk to you from God's Word tonight. My man Elijah Waters is joining us this week for camp. And he's right now LA campus for Pastor Judah Smith's church home, and so he's out there leading the way at LA, and they're going to hop on a plane tomorrow morning. They're going to join us, and man, I'm so thrilled to have him, man. This is like his 4th summer camp in a row to come and be a part of James Review camps, and he's no stranger to us, and so it's going to be cool to have him join our family once again. And but until he arrives, I get the privilege of talking about. Here we go. Matthew chapter 9, starting in verse number 1. Oh, hold up. It is page 911 of my Bible. Hello.
Yeah.
All right, here it goes. The first one, it says, Jesus climbed into a boat. He went back across the lake to his own town, and some people brought to him a paralyzed man on a mat. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralyzed man, "Be encouraged, my child. Your sins are forgiven." But some of the teachers of religious law said to themselves, "That's blasphemy. Does he think he's God?" And Jesus knew what they were thinking. So he asked them, "Why do you have such evil thoughts in your hearts? Is it easier to say your sins are forgiven or stand up and walk? So I will prove to you that I am the Son of Man, who has the authority on earth to forgive sins." Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and he said, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and go home." And the man jumped up and went home. Fear swept through the crowd as they saw this happen, and they praised God for sending a man with such great authority. Well, you told me in prayer tonight, God, I thank you. I thank you for the time that we have together. But I pray that over these next 25 minutes that you would speak beyond my ability, speak beyond my words. History makers, that's just the truth. But as you're doing so, I just got a question. How many of you guys, you've noticed that when it comes to you and the friends you roll with, you can experience the exact same situation, but the description of it to another friend comes out totally different. You know what I'm talking about? I hear these guys like, bro. And like, that's their description right there. And the other's like, no one. He's like, bro, right? So like you have those friends where like you get together, and this happens with me and Pastor Zach quite a bit. We'll get together and we'll start like telling a story to somebody else in the office, and as he's telling them, oh yeah, and don't forget. And I'll like add something, and he's like, right. And then he'll go on, and they're like, oh yeah, and then this. And like we have to like tag team the story because, you know, like each person's perspective is just a little bit different than the other person's perspective. And so as one person's sharing it, you're like, hey, don't forget this. And the other person's like, oh yeah, and don't forget this. But then you always have that one friend who's not like that at all. They're just straight shooters. You know what I'm talking about? Where instead of like telling the whole story, giving all the details, they just like stay just like one statement. It's like a thesis, and that's it. They're just like, bang, it's over. And then they just walk off, and you're like, what just happened? What was that? And they're like, mic drop. That's just how they live all the time. You know what I'm talking about? Like this is how this story plays out. Like I'm reading this story in Matthew chapter 9, and Matthew, with this account, with this miracle of Jesus that we see in Matthew chapter 9, he's like straight shooter. Like the story that you see in the other Gospels, the other biographers of Jesus, you got Mark and you've got Luke, who tell the same story. But when Mark and Luke tell this story, there's a lot more to it than what Matthew tells. Because with Mark and Luke, they're like, oh man, so here's how it went down. Crazy, right? Get this. Huge crowd of people, because with Jesus, there's always a huge crowd because Jesus is always worth following. Hello. And so there's a huge crowd. They're following Jesus. And Jesus is like, he's posted up in this house and he's doing an amazing work. He's healing all these people. He's got like a throwdown message. Fire! Like it's just, revival is breaking loose in the land. And there's so many people at this house that there's no way to get in. And so Mark and Luke both tell this story of how there are four friends that carry a paralyzed man up to this house. There's no way to get them to Jesus, so they climb up on the roof. they dig a hole in the roof, and then they just drop their homie through the roof because he's paralyzed. He's not going to feel it anyways. And they just like drop him at Jesus' feet. Jesus sees their faith, and he says, your sins are forgiven. Everybody's like, you can't do that. And so he heals them, and then it's just a miracle, and everybody's like, wow, Jesus is amazing. That's how Mark and Luke tell the story. But Matthew's a straight shooter. He just gets straight to the point. You have no idea that it's like in this massive setting with all these people crammed into a room. And you've got people that have climbed up on a roof and dug through. Like, he skips all of that. It's as if like Mark and Luke, if they went to Andy's, they'd be like, I want the Andy's James Brownie Funky Fudge Jackhammer with extra hot fudge. I need a filtered water on the side. And can you give me 2 spoons, please? Like, that's how they would order it. And then Matthew would be like, I just need a vanilla cone. Like, that's how Matthew is. And so like he's just straight to the point, very simple, very direct. But I want you to understand that even though in his simplicity, even though he's very direct with this story, it does not negate the magnitude of what Jesus did in this account, in this miracle. Because in one verse alone, Matthew states something that's so revolutionary, so incredible, that I think too many of us often just skip right past it and we miss the significance of what takes place, not just in this passage, but in our lives as well. Let's look at it again. Matthew chapter 9, verse 2. Matthew chapter 9, verse 2. It says, now some people brought to him a paralyzed man on a mat. Not stated, dropped him through a roof. And seeing their faith, after he dropped him through a roof, Jesus said to the paralyzed man, be encouraged. You just got dropped through a roof. And your sins are forgiven. Like, that right there, just one verse. He sees their faith, and he says, be encouraged, your sins are forgiven. Tonight, the idea of wants versus needs. See, I'm a parent, and I've got 2 beautiful daughters. One of them's 9, one of them's 3. They think they run the joint. It's because they kind of do. So they'll be at camp this week. They're a lot of fun, but we have to continually explain to them the difference between want and need. Like, so many times when there are things that we want, we mistake them for a need. Like, my daughter's like, I want mac and cheese. I'm like, you ain't getting mac and cheese. But I want it. You're not getting mac and cheese. But I need it. It's 9 a.m. in the morning. We're not doing mac and cheese for breakfast. That's disgusting, all right? All right, okay. I want a bomb pop. It's still 9 in the morning. We're not eating popsicles for breakfast. And so this goes on, and they think that what they want is something that they actually need. But we all understand the difference between want and need. But what happens in our lives is that too many times we carry around the wants so much. And it's with us so much that we eventually fall into the trap of thinking that the want is actually a need. And it doesn't just happen in our interactions with other people. It eventually happens in our relationship with Jesus. To where as we go about our daily living, we're just like, oh, Jesus, man, I really want this. I want you to do this in my life. I want you to do this in my life. I want you to do this in my life. And we carry it around so much, and we're in such close proximity that this is all we see, this is all we feel, this is all we know. That it eventually becomes so undeniable and so magnificent of a want that we mistake it for a need. And these people show up. They bring their friend to Jesus. They break through the barriers, literally the physical barriers of a roof, physical barriers of a crowd. They get their friend to Jesus because what they want is something that they need. They want Jesus to heal their friend. And that's a great thing to want. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them wanting their friend to be healed. But they were mistaken in thinking that their want was actually what the man needed. And Jesus is so loving and he's so great. He looks beyond our wants. He needs our needs. Jesus sees the man and he's like, oh, this is amazing. Your faith, I see your faith. I see your faith, guys. You believe that I can do this miracle. I know that you want him to be healed. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to heal him right now. And he looks at the man who's laying there, who's unable to move because he's physically paralyzed. And he meets his need. He says, be encouraged. Your sins are forgiven. And then he just stands there. Can you imagine that for a moment? Like you're one of the friends, you've journeyed all this way, you carried this guy, you're sweating, you fought through the crowd, you busted through the roof, you brought him to the feet of Jesus, and you're like, all right, man, Jesus, do your thing. And he's like, I will. Go ahead. Your sins are forgiven. What? Are you kidding me right now? You said what? He hasn't moved. Like, what do you mean his sins are forgiven? No, you don't understand. He needs healed. Jesus is like, I healed him. His sins are forgiven. See, the man who is laying there, unable to move, his greatest need wasn't the ability for his legs to do what most of us take for granted each and every day. His need wasn't the very thing that all of us are going to experience in just a few moments, the ability to stand to our feet and worship our God with freedom and fullness, physically and spiritually. No, see, this man's biggest need was beyond his greatest want. What he needed was a man to come alongside and do for him what nobody else could do. And it's to forgive him of all of the mistakes, of all of the sin, of all of the shame, of all of the wrong things that he ever thought, said, did, experienced, all of that between him and his perfect creator God, who looks down at him and sees him as a son that he loves and wants nothing less than his best for him. So he sent Jesus into his pathway, and he made sure that that moment, that day, he would experience the greatest healing, and it was beyond a physical healing, it was a spiritual healing. But here's what I think the issue is that a lot of us have, and we need to understand this tonight. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Though what we need is more of Jesus, not more from Jesus. Let me say that again. We're going to leave that up on the screen, so we'll give you time to write that down. What we actually need is more of Jesus, not just more from Jesus. Because too many times we approach Jesus and we say, oh, Jesus, I'm going to rub like the genie lamp, and you're going to give me the 3 wishes, and here's everything I want. And we give him our wants, not realizing the magnitude of our need. See, our wants are seemingly so much less insignificant than our needs. But Jesus sees what we actually need, and he's like, hey, I love you too much to give you just what you want. I've got so much more in store for you. And we say this a lot around here, but it is true that God has more in store for you. God has more. There's so much more that he has in store for each and every one of us, that he is willing to move beyond our wants to meet our needs, even when we don't have the faith or the understanding of what it is that we actually need. See, these guys, they brought their friend to Jesus, and they're like, hey, we know exactly what this man needs. And Scripture says, seeing their faith, that they believed in Jesus, seeing that they believed he was the answer and he was the only one that could bring hope and help in a hurtful and good news. It's your day. Your sins are forgiven. Because he moves beyond the man's wants to really what the man actually needs. See, here's a better way to understand it, because I think some of us, we're visual learners. I know I am a lot of times. And so I need to see things, or at least picture things. And so here's how this plays out with our wants and our needs, and how God works. All right, so we got a box here of wants, and inside the want is what you know, just one of our brand new camp shirts. I just need to know who wants